the Gospel of Judas is one of these ancient Gnostic texts, originally discovered in 1970 and made public in 2006. So, like, brand new, if we're talking in comparison to the things that we're used to, right? So 2006, made public, discovered in the 70s. It is a non-canonical gospel, obviously, and therefore is not included in any Bible, I don't believe, not that I'm aware of. Believed to date back to around the 2nd century and presents, from what we'll see, similar to the Gospel of Thomas, a wildly different Judas Iscariot, the disciple who obviously betrayed good old Jesus there. Very different individual that gets expressed to us. Judas is not a traitor in this text. Instead, it rather portrays him as Jesus's bestie, like his best friend, his closest disciple, and a massive part of God's plan. Very interesting. Very interesting. So there are a number of translations that, from what I understand, academia has accepted as valid. And this is one of them. This is by Mark M. Madison. And then there's a little bit of a foreword here, so I figure we'll read it. Enjoying a drink with my favorite people, Mikkel. Oh, Mikkel. Shalom and good evening. So it says the translation has been committed to the public domain. This translation has been committed to the public domain. It may be freely copied, used, blah, 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 blah. This text is based on Codex Chakos. I don't know how to say this one. This isn't a very common. This isn't one that if you end up studying a lot of the early couple centuries, the one I just put it in the chat, it is not commonly referred to. So therefore, I have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce that. Page 33 through page 58 is where this text would have been found. It's a 4th century Coptic translation of an earlier Greek text dating back to the middle of the 2nd century, meaning prior to 180 CE, which would mean it was written shortly after the latest books of the New Testament, which is important. To put it in perspective, it's not a very long time after. It's not super, super far after, like some people will say about some of these apocryphal texts. It was shortly after. You could say it was roughly around the same time. It was discovered in Egypt in the 70s, but languished in obscurity in the antiquities market for decades before it was finally purchased by Fridia Chakos, I don't know, Nussenberger on April 3rd, 2000, and responsibly restored, translated, and initially published 6 years later. So again, like that's in a lot of us, that's in our lifetime that this became public. This isn't something that's been around. Well, that's not true. It's been around for a very long time. It's not something that we've had public access to for a very long time. It's pretty wild if you actually think about it. In this codex, this codice, which remains our only known copy of the gospel to date. So this is it. Unlike, for example, the Dead Sea Scrolls, where we got another, I believe, full or close to full copy of books like Isaiah. This is not that scenario. This is different. So this is similar to some of the other apocryphal texts where this is what you have is what you get. We don't have other things to reference. We don't have later findings where we can kind of see discrepancies or see where they were consistent. Yeah, it makes me think of tacos too. I don't know if that's just something that's wrong with me, but if it is, then something's wrong with you too. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So the fragments which became available after the publication of National Geographic's Critical Edition have been included in this translation. But many gaps in the manuscript remain, which we are not a stranger to. These gaps are indicated in the translation by brackets, blah, blah, blah. We already know all of this. And then there are some commendations there and then the introduction. Tacos. This is the secret message of Judas. I'm sorry. This is a secret message of judgment. Jesus spoke with Judas Iscariot over a period of 8 days. 3 days before he celebrated Passover. When he appeared on earth, he did signs and great wonders for the salvation of humanity. Some walked, that's inserted, walked. Some walked in the way of righteousness, but others walked in their transgression. So the 12 disciples were called. He started to tell them about the mysteries beyond the world and what would happen at the end. Often, he didn't reveal himself to his disciples, but you'd find him in their midst as a child. Jesus criticizes the disciples. Not only do we get a bit of a different take on Judas, not only do we get a dramatically different take on Judas, but we get a bit of a different reflection of Jesus Christ too. So just keep that in mind. One day he was with his disciples in Judea. He found them sitting together practicing their piety. When he came up to his disciples, sitting together praying over the bread, he laughed. The disciples said to him, "Master, why are you laughing at our prayer? What have we done? This is what's right." He answered and said to them, "I'm not laughing at you. You're not doing this because you want to, but because through this, your God will be praised." Your God. Notice the different language. Esmail says, is it Chacos? That's what it is, isn't it? Chacos? Am I wrong about how you say that? Chacos has a very drama-filled history. Yeah, you mean about like at where it originated from? If that's what you're talking about, I know what you're talking about. If it's something else, I might not. And I would like to learn. So if you could link us in Discord, I would love to see that. Chocolate and tacos. Chacos. Anyway, so different language. I'm not laughing at you. You're not doing this because you want to, but because through this, your God. Then think of the New Testament, the canonized Gospels. Jesus doesn't really say things like that. It's not expressed that way. Through this, your God, Jesus says. Not God, but your God will be praised. They said, "Master, you," and then they're missing text, "are the Son of our God." So, as you would think, based on the text we have and what we know, this is the likely response because Jesus doesn't talk like that. They said, "Master, you are the Son of our God." Like, what the hell are you talking about? Jesus said to them, "How do you know me? Truly, I say to you, no generation of the people among you will know me. No generation of the people among you will know me." When his disciples heard this, they started to get angry and furious and started to curse him in their hearts. Very unlike the text that we're used to. But when Jesus noticed their ignorance, he said to them, "Why are you letting your anger trouble you? Has your God within you and his stars become angry with your souls? If any of you is strong enough among humans to bring out the perfect humanity, stand up and face me." Chocoholic. If any of you is strong enough among humans to bring out the perfect humanity, stand up and face me. All of them said, "We are strong enough," but their spirits weren't brave enough to stand before him, except Judas Iscariot. He was able to stand before him, but he couldn't look him in the eye, so he looked away. So out of all the disciples, nobody would actually stand up and face Jesus, except for Judas. Although halfway, because once he stood face to face with him, he couldn't make eye contact, so he looked away. Judas said to him, "I know who you are and where you've come from. You've come from the immortal realm of Barbello." I feel like everybody probably is aware of Barbello, but just notice the difference. Different terminology, a lot of different ways in how things are expressed. Some of the same things are expressed, but in a different manner. And then you have mentions of things, obviously, that are not mentioned in the canonized New Testament. "And I'm not worthy to utter the name of the one who's sent you." I'm not worthy to utter the name of the one who's sent you. Then Jesus, knowing that he was talking about what's exalted, said to him, "Come away from the others, and I'll tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. Not so that you'll go there, but you'll grieve much because someone else will replace you to complete the 12 elements before their God." remember, just remember. I'm going to try to not like talk this entire time, but just remember what the Gnostics believe, because you have to have the Gnostic colored glasses on for a lot of this to make sense. Jesus, knowing that he was thinking about what's exalted, God, the one who's sent you, Judas said. Jesus, knowing who that is, what is exalted, he said, come away from the others and I'll tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. Because that's who Jesus was to the Gnostics. He was not God. He was sent on God's behalf, essentially. He was meant to bring in the secrets of the kingdom, of the universe, essentially, for those who were or had the capacity to actually understand it, which was not the majority of people, it seemed. Esmil said it got stored in a freezer for several years based on the recommendation of a friend, and that destroyed much of the manuscript. Yes, which is hilarious. I mean, it's extremely sad. But yeah, I believe it was in New York City where, they tried to get it out of Egypt for years, the story goes. And then finally they're able to smuggle it out of Egypt. And then I don't remember if it's the person who brought it to America or if once he got here, he sold it. But whoever received it ended up putting it in, was it a freezer? I thought it was a safe deposit box. I could be wrong. So either a freezer or a safe deposit box, I believe in New York City, unless I'm thinking of a different manuscript. But it sat and it became garbage, basically. And then it was this whole process and tons of money to restore it back to at least what we have. And considering some of the other stuff we read, it's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. Did they not shrink wrap back then? I think what it was, or what it appeared to be, is just the person who got it really did not know what they had. They didn't know what they had. They obviously weren't like into antiquities, because otherwise they would understand how to preserve it. It's a really interesting story. If you look it up on YouTube, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But it's like Esma said earlier, there's big drama. The background of this, big drama. It's very, very interesting. So come away from the others. I'll tell you the mysteries of the kingdom, not so that you'll go there, but you'll grieve much because someone else will replace you to complete the 12 elements before their God. Judas said to him, when will you tell me these things? And when will the great day of light dawn for the generation? And then we're missing text. But when he said these things, Jesus left him. Next section is called Another Generation. David said, now that is really cold storage. David, what do you know about cold storage, my friend? Are you a crypto person? Or is this a different type of legitimate cold storage? Another generation is what this next understandable. Good God. Another generation. The next morning he appeared to his disciples, and they said to him, Master, where did you go, and what did you do when you left us? Jesus said to them, I went to another great and holy generation. His disciples said to him, Lord, what great generation is better and holier than us? That's not in these realms. Now, when Jesus heard this, he laughed. Jesus does a lot of laughing in this. He said to them, why are you wondering in your hearts about the strong and holy generation? Truly, I say to you, no one born of this realm will see that generation. No army of angels from the stars will rule over it, and no person of mortal birth will be able to join it. Because that generation doesn't come from, missing text, that has become, missing text. The generation of people among them is from the generation of great people, missing text. The powerful authorities who, missing text. Nor the powers, missing, those by which you rule. When his disciples heard these things, they were able, what? Oh, I'm just stupid. When his disciples heard these things, they were each troubled in their spirit. They couldn't say a thing. I have an issue with 37 because I hate to be the guy to say it seems like it was intentionally removed, because it seems as though something very important is being explained here. Because that generation doesn't come from, and then we don't have it. That has become, and then we don't have it. The generation of people among them is from the generation of great people that in them we don't have it. It seems too perfect. It seems too perfect when you consider the rest. And you'll think I'm crazy until we read the whole thing. And you see that's not the only time that that happens, where it's seemingly something important that just happens to be missing from the text. Esmo said, when it thawed, it absorbed a lot of the moisture and it dissolved. Okay, so it was frozen. It went from freezer to safe deposit box. Okay. Interesting. I need to go through the story again. It's been years, but I know it's a great story. It's very interesting. The same with like the discovery in, what was it, 45? Nag Hammadi. There are some other pretty interesting stories for some of those texts too. Come from Pleroma, Ghost said. I like it because that generation doesn't come from the Pleroma. Ghost is pushing on there. Huh. Seems like the first missing text would be Pleroma. I think it fits. It fits. A generation doesn't come from the Pleroma that has become, and I mean, maybe it was Pleroma and then something else that then led into that has become before we're missing text again. I think that's, yeah, it would work. It would work. Drives me banana sandwich, man. Mikkel said kind of like FBI, CIA declassified documents. Kind of like that. The important stuff has been redacted. All right. When his disciples heard these things, they were each troubled in their spirit. They couldn't say a thing. The next section is called the disciples' vision. Ooh, hold on. Let's see. I like this game. It's like playing Mad Libs, except with words of God. Ghost said that has become corrupted or blind. So let's play this all the way through. So because that generation doesn't come from the Pleroma, that has become corrupted or blind, the generation of people among them is from the generation of great people, and then blank. You know, it'd be really interesting, and it's kind of funny because like that's what scholars do, is they just basically play Mad Libs, a high level Mad Libs, albeit, but it works. It works. I just always wonder, like, when you do that sometimes and it makes sense, and you're like, this adds up. Like that, the Pleroma would make sense. Become corrupted or blind or something to that effect, something conveying the same type of idea, I think makes sense. But then it's like, where does that start and stop? That's why it's nice to have the pictures of the actual, the physical text, because you can see like how big the gap is in most cases. You can see where words were pulled out or cut out or whatever, smudged, where you just can't, it's not legible, but you can see the space, because then you can be like, okay, well, that looks like no more than 4 words, no more than 1 word, no more than 7 words. And you can kind of play better that way. Obviously, when we're in a PDF, you get the 3 dots and it could be 5 lines of text. It could be 1 word of text. You just don't know. I think that's interesting though. Those Mad Lib inserts are interesting. Yeah, these ellipses look strategically placed. I agree. And it's not the only one. You know, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me the entire text, shame on whoever redacted the text. Mikkel said strategically. Yeah, strategic Mad Libs is what they do. It's very interesting. I wish you could make a lot of money doing that, because what a great job. What a great job that would be. The disciples' vision. Another day, Jesus came up to them and said, Another day, Jesus came up to them. They said to him, Master, we've seen you in a dream, because we had great dreams last night. But Jesus said, why, missing text, hidden yourselves? And they said, we saw a great house with a great altar in it and 12 people. We'd say they were priests, and a name. And a crowd of people was waiting at the altar until the priests finished receiving the offerings. We kept waiting too. Oh, that ends right there. We kept waiting too. Now, Jesus said, what were they like? I love that question. What were they like? And they said, some fast for 2 weeks, others sacrifice their own children, others their wives, sacrificing them, praising and humbling themselves among each other. Others sleep with men, others murder, yet others commit many sins and do criminal things. And the people standing before the altar invoke your name, Jesus' name. In all their sacrificing, they fill the altar with their offerings. When they said this, they fell silent because they were troubled. There's quite a bit there. The book of Judas was written by David Lynch. That's good. Kat said, I feel like I need to up my pun game now. I didn't know I had to carry you along, David. I feel intense responsibility now. Puns aren't my strong suit, but I won't let you down. I am terrible. Terrible with it. Joe says, missing text, but he really means merp. I don't think everybody wants to hear merp, is the thing. That is the thing. I could be wrong. Always open to being wrong. But I just don't find it the most plausible outcome on that question. Okay. Beautiful. So, wild stuff going on. All while invoking the name of Jesus. Quick reminder, some of those things were sacrificing their own children, sacrificing their wives, humbling themselves among one another, praising each other. Others slept with men, obviously insinuating men sleeping with men, murder, committing sins, and doing other criminal things. They're standing before the altar invoking Jesus' name, and in their sacrificing, they fill the altar with offerings. When they said this, when the disciples explained this to Jesus, they shut up because they became very troubled. Jesus said to them, why are you troubled? Truly I say to you, all the priests standing before that altar invoke my name. And again, I say to you, my name has been written on this house of the generations of the stars by the human generations. One more time on that, because I know it's a lot. I said to you, Jesus is talking, my name has been written on this house of the generations of the stars by the human generations. And they have shamefully planted fruitless trees in my name, which is another line that I just love. They have shamefully planted fruitless trees in my name. This is such a beautiful expression of what I believe Christianity has become today. They, meaning Christian culture, has shamefully planted fruitless trees in the name of God. In my humble opinion, everyone wants to hear MERP. Put up a poll right now. Do it. No, I refuse. I hold the power of the poll. But actually, that is a fantastic idea because polls help with the algorithm and stuff. So let's do that. Okay, there will be a poll. It's not because she told me to, because I'm a man and I'll have to do what she tells me to do. I'm doing it for the algorithm, just so we're all clear. And then I will get rid of the poll because I know it blocks the chat on the YouTubes there. Esmil said the main hypothesis is that generations didn't come from the demiurge, but came directly from the Barbello cloud like Jesus himself. I am more on that track. Yeah. Obviously, we see both, kind of depending on what you're looking at. I'm going to close the poll in 10 seconds. So Esmil's talking about the generations, whether they come from the demiurge itself or they come from the Barbello, similar to Jesus, which would be, I don't know, how would you describe that? I guess like two different spiritual centers. The most common understanding I have, the most common view, or at least it used to be, was that they came from the demiurge. But I feel like that kind of shifted as scholarship got more involved with some of the Gnostic stuff. It seems to be, like Esmil said, there seems to be a shift more towards the Barbello theory, which is interesting. And it's more where I lean with all this stuff too. And that makes more sense to me. Goes at, how did the Gnostics distinguish Barbello from pleroma. Oh, maybe that's what. No, that was newer. Okay, sorry. The chat is like delayed right now, so it's slowly filtering back in. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I'd have to like specifically look into that. It seems as though like depending on the group, they're just kind of more clicked into one than the other, actually. But I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to confidently answer that. I'd have to look. I'd have to spend time on it. It's hard to get like good data. If Esmil knows though, I'd be curious to see or to hear his take on it though. Breaking the third commandment. Yeah, it's a good point. I see the pleroma as the father and Barbello as the mother and son, but I'd like to hear a Gnostic expert explain it. Ooh, yeah, you should look into that. I'm not sure if you'd be able to reconcile that. I'd have to really think about that. On its face, like immediately, I think if you really dug through it, I think you'd have a hard time making that one work. But I'd want to think about it more. I have a hard time with the triune nature of that to begin with. But it's an interesting thought. MERP can also be translated to what the F in a pinch. It's truly a versatile word that I myself came up with once while in a flustered state. That is true. Yeah. You will hear MERP in our household every single day. The child says it, we say it. It's just become vernacular for us. MERP is a Gnostic slang, he said. Okay. Jesus said, so after all the weird stuff, sacrificing of children, all that fun, great stuff, Jesus said to them, why are you troubled? Truly I say to you, all the priests standing before that altar invoke my name. And again, I say to you, my name has been written on this house of the generations of the stars by the human generations. And they have shamefully planted fruitless trees in my name. Personal favorite. Jesus said to them, you're the ones receiving the offering on the altar. You're the ones receiving the offerings on the altar you've seen. That's the God you serve. And you're the 12 people you've seen. And the animals you saw brought in to be sacrificed are the crowd you led astray before that altar. Your minister will stand up and use my name like that, and the generations of the pious will be loyal to him. After him, another person will present those who sleep around, and another those who murder children, and another those who sleep with men, and those who fast, and the rest of impurity, crime, and error. And those who say, we're equal to the angels, they are the stars that finish everything. It's been said to the human generations, look, God has accepted your sacrifice from the hands of priests, that is, the minister of error. But the Lord who commands is the Lord over everything. On the last day, they'll be found guilty.